40. Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين وأصحابه المنتجبين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى قيام يوم الدين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. When the blessed Prophet went to his community and he said, قُولُوا لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ تُفْلِحُوا, state that there is no God but Allah and you shall become successful. And they said, there is no God but Allah. And we understand them to have found their salvation. But what we must ask ourselves is that what happened subsequent to them proclaiming the Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? They were fully transformed. Beast-like people without any human values or spiritual refinement, or people who were very, very backward technologically, economically, in their social system, very exploitative, whatever they were. After they said La ilaha illallah, they became best of people. Over the course of 23 years, whilst the Prophet was with them, they became people who began to read and to learn, take knowledge from others without any hesitation. They became liberated in their minds. Their intellectual horizons opened up. They became very, very refined morally. Spiritually, they became aligned with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only did they have values that governed them morally, but each and every one of them was invested in God personally, in which they accepted the decree of God to the extent that the lives for whose sake they fought each other were now given away for the sake of Allah in order to promote good. The enmities for whose sake they lived through vendettas to get their revenge melted away in friendship. So when the Blessed Prophet said, قُولُوا لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ تُفْلِحُوا, it wasn't a statement that he was demanding of them. It was the effect of the statement that would subsequently reform them. So this state of falah or success wasn't in the statement, was in the implication of the practical appeal of the statement. And this success that they got was what we call an existential success. It's not that somebody says La ilaha illallah and Allah will give them paradise. That doesn't make too much sense. Even if a person goes to paradise, it would be a place that a person cannot comprehend. It's like playing beautiful music to a deaf person, or Urdu mushaira to a khoja. We just don't understand the eloquency of Urdu. People bang their heads against the walls, becoming ecstatic, and the khoja just sits there and says, well, what's going on? This salvation, salawat, this salvation was to come to the fullness of existence. And how can it be otherwise? How can salvation be otherwise? How can anybody imagine that by praying prayer we will get salvation? How is that possible? Tell me. A parrot can pray a prayer, nothing happens to the parrot. What we are after is what is happening existentially to the individual and to the community. That is the yardstick of success or failure. I often give this example that a seed does not become a tree by saying, I am a tree. The seed has to allow a tree to progress from its chest. It needs to be torn apart and allow itself to grow. Give itself to the properties of growth. It has to become fluid within itself, to relent, to break its own boundaries, to loosen itself slightly, so that the beauty that is embedded within the seed may emerge beautifully. And once it becomes a tree, there you have it. It has found the completion of its journey. It, in its own context, has attained falah. It has attained success. Falah means to open. So when the Blessed Prophet said, Qulu la ilaha illallah tuflihu, he was not after a statement, not the prayers that we are praying and fast that we are fasting, or the Hajj that we perform. None of these things constitute falah in the rightest sense. These are the first steps towards acquisition of success. Success is for us to arrive at the fullness of our potential and our humanity, whatever is vested within us. Now let's look into this a bit more thoroughly. If we look at the human beings, we are people with immense potential within us. Great potential. We cannot be defied by any restraint. If there are restraints in front of us, our instinctive reaction is to break through it or to overcome it. We are never subdued. There is something inside us that doesn't allow us to rest. Look at our grandfather Adam. He was told, do not eat of that tree. He went and he ate. There is something within us. We cannot be restrained. And that is the way our existence is. Our success, therefore, is to do with that property and nature that we have. That we have to arrive to the fullness of whatever is within us. Look at the marvelous achievements that we have made. We have created wings. We cure. We will create. We will make an artificially intelligent being who will then do whatever we want, and they may even become people who have a moral understanding of life, and we may even begin to call them human beings. But we are creators potentially, and we will not stop. We will want to progress. We are hardwired to do this. Similarly, look at our beautiful progression. At one point, we used to distinguish between a person and another on the basis of color. Today, if ever anyone were to distinguish on the basis of color, they would be seen less than human. How dare you distinguish on the basis of color? The beauty statements are all changing, aren't they? There is no hairstyle that constitutes beauty. Any hairstyle may constitute beauty, and no hairstyle as well for those who do not have much hair left. Like, I'm losing it as well, and I don't know why I'm saying these things, salawat. You know, when I come on the motorway and there is rain and there's a lot of traffic, I get totally disoriented in my head. So things will be popping out that I don't intend. So just bear with me. In our growth process, we've come to a level now where we no longer find distinguishing one from another a befitting moral attitude. We do not distinguish between genders anymore. We do not distinguish in terms of religions anymore. Look at this fine actualization of the moral potential that we have within ourselves. I know until a few years ago, the Muslims were thinking that they are the only ones going to paradise. But since we opened the doors of paradise to humanity at large, I think they're getting used to the fact that everybody else is also going to paradise. And today, if anybody were to be against religious pluralism, we would frown upon them, wouldn't we? But only 10 years ago, Muslims had this paradise to themselves, didn't they? But within 5 years, it's all changed, or 10 years. Obviously, I'm hinting at the lectures I gave 5 years ago. Now, if you say to a godly soul and a moral being that you're not going to paradise, people will say, well, what sort of a person are you? What sort of a God do you worship? This beautiful moral evolution that we find within ourselves, it is nothing but actualization of that potential vested within us. We now no longer find pleasure in eating whilst another person or creature of God is hungry. We find greater pleasure in sharing as opposed to having for ourselves. We are beautifully advancing and growing. Similarly, the spiritual refinement that we are going through, that we are indeed noble individuals from within ourselves. We feel certain things below us and below our prestige and below our pride, don't we? At one point, we would say that women are inferior. At another point, we say they are our equal. But even those people who felt women were inferior, there were many of them, they said, to treat them inferior is inconsistent with our inner nobility. Let us take the case of an unborn fetus. There's a huge discussion that the fetus doesn't have a right to exist because they cannot claim a right. It doesn't have the capacity to claim a right for life. But the human nobility impels an individual that even if the fetus doesn't possess that sort of a right, our nobility will give them the right of existence. Similarly, the whole issue with animal rights. The animals were there for us to raise and consume, right? Use and abuse. In today's world, we are saying even if an animal doesn't have a right in itself, the sort of right that it can claim or whatever, our nobility gives animals a right for proper existence. And just wait, in a few years' time, we will not be consuming animals. It will stop altogether because it will be something that's barbaric, below our prestige, below our worth, below our nobility. Khichda will not have meat, and then I don't know how we will call it khichda anymore. You have hundreds of dal, somebody said, but you don't put meat inside it, it's not halim or khichda. This is where we are headed to. We are seeing this beautiful spiritual refinement and we are evolving. It is here, therefore, that we ask, well, what is the story that is going on? The Prophet came and he put his community on the track of progression and evolution. He removed intellectual barriers, yes? He brought about moral refinement, spiritual alignment. Isn't this what the human community is doing at present anyway? Why did the Prophet come at that point? Why did the Prophet come at that point? Because those people had moved away from the path of self-realization and actualization. So the blessed Prophet came with Islam as a message. But what did Islam give that the modern human community is not abiding by? Tell me. What did Islam give then that we are not abiding by now? As far as intellectual progression is concerned, the whole humanity is intellectually evolving. As far as moral refinement is concerned, the whole of humanity is becoming morally refined. As far as spiritual alignment is concerned, the whole of humanity is looking for that substantive form of existence that I need to know, that at the core of myself, my worth and my existence is worthy and worthwhile, that I am indeed grounded and rooted in existence. Whether we find that through the notion of Allah or cosmic consciousness or whatever else, humanity is looking for that. Moving towards spirituality and mysticism, all these things that we have. The Prophet only came to realign humanity at that point with what we are doing anyway today. So now you might ask, well, what's the point of Islam? The one that the Prophet gave. You see, here it is that we need to understand things very, very accurately. The distinction of kafir and the mushrik, if we read the Quran very accurately, we will find that we have actually got it wrong. The kafir in the Quran is not somebody who denies God's existence. Kafir is not somebody who denies God's existence at all. The word kufr in the Quran, when it is used in Surah Baqarah to depict Iblis, he says, وَكَانَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ أَبَى وَاسْتَكْبَرَ وَكَانَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ. Iblis did not prostrate before Adam. He refused. He behaved in pride, boasted. وَكَانَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ, and he was amongst the disbelievers. But Iblis is talking with God. Can you not see that? How can he disbelieve in God? Iblis acknowledges the unity of God. How can he be a disbeliever in God? Iblis says, "O Lord, spare me until the day you will raise them." He is also acknowledging the day of judgment. He is the finest Muslim by definition. And he is a kafir. Kafir was never meant to label people in that way. Kafir is a knowing denial and opposition to God. Iblis denied only one thing. He denied surrender to the will of God. That's all he did. And he upheld his ego very knowingly. And he came in opposition to God. And he said, fine, do what you want. I will misguide him and mislead him and his progeny. And you will not find many of them thankful to you for what you have bestowed them with. So Allah uses the word kufr to depict a knowing state of denial. Why is a knowing state of denial problematic? Before we go into it. Because if our job is to evolve and to grow and to come to the fullness of our humanity, the only thing that can arrest that process of growth is us, ourselves, and our adamant natures. I know this is the truth, but I will not accept it. And that blocks that growth process. The growth process requires the humility to acknowledge that there is a growth process and I need to embark upon it. So Iblis here is being called a kafir. According to this definition of knowing denial and in opposition to God, can you call Christian kafir? Can you call a Jew kafir? You can't. Can we call a Sikh kafir? Of course not. Can we call Hindu kafir? They believe in one, inevitably, they believe in one God or multiplicity of gods, but they're not kafir. Can we call a person who calls themselves an atheist a kafir? Because an atheist says to the people of Abrahamic faiths that I do not understand the notion of your God. Your God is nonsensical. I don't believe in him. Is this a knowing denial of God, acknowledging God and then denying God and coming in opposition to God? Of course not. A poor atheist is not a kafir. He merely does not understand the skewed up notion that the Abrahamic faith has. And it's a skewed up notion. The notion in this Abrahamic faith is not an accurate one. According to this, La ilaha illallah makes everybody kafirs. La ilaha, there is no God. Think about this. Think about an atheist and the atheistic argument that they have with relation to the suffering on earth. They say, you say, your God is all kind, all merciful, all knowing, and all capable. So he can remove the tribulations of a person and replace it with a good, compatible state and not lose his objective. Yes, we do say that, don't we? If Imam Hussain was going through the tribulations on the day of Ashura, I ask a question that an atheist would ask. Is God capable of removing that tribulation from Imam Hussain? The answer is yes. The end game that God envisaged from the tribulations on the day of Ashura, could God have attained that otherwise without the tribulations of Imam Hussain? If you say no, then God is incapable. So you have to say yes. Is God incapable? So the answer is yes. So here is the thing. The atheist is saying, your God is one who can remove all suffering. His objective can still be attained. He is kinder than a mother. He's all-knowing. He is all-capable. And yet he allows suffering to continue. What sort of a God is this? And on that basis, if somebody disbelieves in God, is that person a kafir? Of course not. How can they be a kafir? According to the definition, there is no kafir. When the Prophet came, he did not come to a group of people and said, you are successful because you're uttering la ilaha illallah and the rest of them are kuffar. That was not what he had said at all. Then we come to this another particular label that we have, that if a person does not believe in the wahdaniyah of Allah, they are mushrik. Let's analyze this further. The mushrik is a person who knowingly gives lordship and independency of lordship to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowingly. Think about this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Christians, what you are advocating of a Trinitarian theology is an act of kufr. But He does not call them kafir and He doesn't call them mushrik. He doesn't say you are mushrik, He says you are Ahlul Kitab. Allah further states that the Masih, the Isa, the Christians are saying Masih ibn Allah, that Isa is the son of Allah, and the Jews are saying Uzair ibn Allah. Uzair is the son of God, but it does not call them mushrikeen. This label that we have, that this person is performing shirk with God, is again an inaccurate understanding. There is no mushrik in the rightest sense. There is a distinction that the Quran makes between the act of shirk and the person who is termed as a mushrik. Similarly, the act of kufr and the person who is termed as a kafir. If we were to look at the Christian belief, they will say, yes, there are 3 and 1 and 1 and 3, but God is ultimately only one and He is the Lord of all Lord. And therefore, it does not constitute shirk in the rightest sense. You know how we also get carried away with labeling each other that the Shias are kafir because they say, Ya Ali Madad. The thing is, then Hazrat Yaqub did sajda to Hazrat Yusuf. Was he a kafir as well? See, these things need to be clarified. Doing a sajda without the intention of giving the worth of lordship or God to that person does not constitute ibadah or worship. So we will see upon very close analysis that we cannot find a mushrik in the rightest sense, and we cannot find a kafir in the rightest sense. Now, when we analyze it again, we see that the problematic area was Qulu la ilaha illallah, say there is no God but Allah and you will find success. So the implication is what? That if you do not say la ilaha illallah, you will not find success. Is that right? Do we follow that? So saying la ilaha illallah brings an individual to the fullness of their existence, right? So not finding success means that if a person does not say la ilaha illallah, they will not find fullness of their existence being accomplished. Let me put it differently. It is like somebody saying, read this book and you will pass the exam. The implication is that if you don't read that book, you will not pass the exam. Yes? Or if somebody says, study and you will pass the exam, the implication is that if you do not study, you will not pass the exam. So here are people who are saying, we are saying la ilaha illallah, we have found success. And as for the people who do not find success, they are the kafir and they are the mushrik. So therefore, the kafir must be the most backward person technologically that the world has ever seen. Let's look at the world now. Look at the Middle East, look at Europe and America and Australia. Who is technologically more advanced? The people of the Middle East who are labeled as Muslims, or the people outside the Middle East who are not labeled as Muslims, or maybe they are kafir and maybe they are mushrik? Who are the ones who are intellectually more advanced? Somebody was telling me the Muslim contribution to the intellectual heritage right now is 1%. 1%. Dr. Iqbal was saying last week, their contribution to economy is 5%. 2 billion Muslims' contribution to the global economy is 5%. The ones who are not successful have a successful economy. The intellectual output of 2 billion Muslims who assume themselves to be successful is 1%. The kafir and the mushrik who haven't said la ilaha illallah according to these Muslims Their intellectual output is 99%. Think about this. Who is the one who is successful one here? The one who is saying La ilaha illallah, or the one we are terming as kafir and the mushrik? I'll go through that again just to emphasize it further. When the Prophet said Qulu la ilaha illallah tuflahu, we interpret this to mean existential actualization of our potential. And that's a success. Yes? He found a beast-like community, monstrous community. And he made them into finest, moral, refined agents who are spiritually centered with God. People who possess the light of God. The people who abide by human values, and that was their success. The people who conquered the waves. The people who studied nature. The people who are the fathers of the scientific method of data collection and analysis. And of course, that means falah, success. They attained it. Intellectual liberation, moral refinement, and spiritual alignment. So La ilaha illallah meant coming to the fullness of our human potential. As opposed to that, kufr and shirk, Allah says, are not forgivable. It means that those people are not successful. So not successful would only mean existentially unsuccessful. Yes? So they would be intellectually backwards, morally deprived, and spiritually unaligned. If that is the case, then let's have a look at the world. The Middle East is intellectually lacking. I'm trying to say we Muslims are intellectually lacking. The people we term kafir and mushrik are far more intellectually evolved than we are. They've gone into space. The Hubble has taken pictures, and I have brought the verse of the Quran. It was already there 1400 years ago. Do you remember that? Hubble brought out a beautiful picture of a galaxy that looks like a rose dipped in oil. And then we brought out the verse of Surah Rahman. We already had that 1400 years ago. Do you remember that? Or not? Are you seeing my sarcasm or not? You're saying it? Yeah, salawat, please. There's nothing wrong with smiling. The Muslims have lost the ability to smile as well. Anyway, then in Surah Qiyamah, the ayah said, Bala qadireen ala an nusawwiya banana. They said they are displaying suspicion about the resurrection. Allah is saying we are capable, or the Quran is saying we are capable of recreating your fingertip. The kafir said the fingertip is unique to an individual. The Muslim said the Quran said that already. Can you see that? But the Muslims have been reading this, Bala qadireen ala an nusawwiya banana. We are capable of reconstructing his fingerprint for the last 1,400 years, and they don't even know. Why is God saying we are capable of reconstructing the fingerprint? They're just saying it because it sounds nice. So intellectually, the non-Muslim world is far more successful. How about morally? Think about this. The moral refinement within the non-Muslim world far exceeds the moral refinement that we have within the Muslim world. In this part, in a secular state, I am able to lecture to you with this openness. Yes? Do you think anybody else would allow me to do this? Wouldn't I get banned? You can see, obviously, I'm dropping so many sarcastic hints here. Tell me, you go to any Muslim land, will they let anybody preach? They won't even be able to tolerate a Muslim preaching, let alone a non-Muslim preaching. Here we can say everything. By the way, even in UK, you can't say everything. Just in Mafil Ali, yeah? Yeah, I better put that right, yes. But this is not Kafir land, this is Muslim land. But if you look at the secular state, they allow for pluralistic expression. Isn't that beautiful? Religious freedom. You will not be discriminated on the basis of religion or ethnicity. You go to our own lands, you see how we treat each other. Who is morally more refined? Look at the welfare system that we have here. Look at the one that we have in our own lands. There was an unfortunate incident in which a person had died and his body had not been discovered. So obviously the police contacted us and the body was in a state that we couldn't handle. Those poor nurses, male and female nurses, they said, we know that the stench is too much for you. You can't handle this, yes? He said, let us wash the body like you want to wash the body. We'll wear gloves and everything. You just instruct us if you can't do it. So we said, no, well, we think we should handle it ourselves. So they said, okay, well, we'll stand here if it's okay with you, or we'll stand behind the door. Just let us know what help you need. Those people did not have any faith to motivate them into good deeds. This was the minimum requirement of their humanity. I asked them, I said, are you obliged to do this? They said, no, of course not. We're not obliged. We're just obliged to give you the body back. But we know this is your religious requirement, so we are here to assist you. For them, morality is not based on Allah will give you paradise. This is the least a human being has to do. If the dead person had these beliefs, let's honor it. Didn't Imam Hussain Salamullah alayhi said, if you people have no fear of the chastisement of God, then at least be decent human beings. There is a minimum requirement that your humanity expects of you, to be a moral person. So morally, in every way, we find that West, who we call non-Muslims, have excelled. Spiritual refinement. Look at the amount of charity. When people do charity, sometimes it's a moral act. Sometimes it's a godly act. It's a moral act when we say, yes, it's right to feed the other. It's a godly act when your soul cannot resist itself from burning and paining at the plight of another. That is what I would call a spiritual act. When they believe in God, they have tears in their eyes. And Quran bears witness to it. Upon analysis, we find that the rest of the world is well on the pedestal of La ilaha illallah. And the Muslim who feels that just pronouncing La ilaha illallah is a statement that brings salvation is the one that has failed. The whole thing has turned on its head. Think about this very carefully. Of what point are all these sajdas that we do if we can't have godliness in our souls? If we can't abide by moral human principles? If we have so much biases in our hearts? In fact, the religion that teaches this is an ungodly religion. Any religion that teaches distinction between one and another is an ungodly religion, even if it's come packaged in the name of God. It cannot be from God. If the society was like the way it is today, the Prophet would not have come to tell them. Because the society, alhamdulillah, is on its evolutionary track. It's progressing beautifully. Yes, a prophetic figure might come to stop us from killing each other. Maybe that's where the need of a prophetic figure is. But not in terms of setting us on the track of fulfillment of the human potential that we have. If this has been understood, then we ask a simple question. And this is something we need to ask. What a joke we are living in. Think about the Muslim head and what goes on in there. Yes? That the Muslim feels that, okay, I'll come here, pray, fast, spend 60 years of my life, die, and then go to paradise. This is the most bankrupted thinking I've ever seen in my life. I mean, why do you want to go to paradise? What does paradise mean anyway? Why did God create you? Doesn't anybody want to ask this? Doesn't this question occur to the Muslim mind or the Christian or the Jewish mind? That we'll go to paradise. Well, what is paradise? A place of bliss. Take a drug here and find bliss. Why are you killing so many people? Don't take drugs. Why are you killing so many people? Why so much headache? For 60 years, just inject something in your arm and just feel bliss, or listen to my lecturing constantly and find bliss. Salawat. You're not, you guys are not with it today, right? Definitely not with it. We all need something in our tea tonight. No, seriously, does this at all make sense from a God who is so mighty, who is becoming so petty? Think about these things. He has created a hellish place known as the earth for us. Yes? Look at the tribulations we are facing here. Any kind God would not create something like this. Would you agree? Because if you agree, you're becoming a kafir. And if you don't agree, you're going against your reason. Any responsible God would not create a hellhole like this. Think about this. You know, the Muslims are just lost in their heads. So are the Christians and the Jews and the Hindus. The people of the faith we are all, we need some tweaking in there. We are killing each other. We are butchering each other. In the middle of it all, we pray our 5-time prayers and fast and do Hajj, and then we want to go to paradise. Is paradise worth the bloodshed that is happening here? Would any reasonable person with a good heart want so many people to suffer in order to go to paradise? If the answer is yes, then we are less than humans. Are you getting the argument? And then to think that some people are going to go to hell. I mean, doesn't your heart pain at that some people are going to go to hell? For me to go to heaven, that person needs to go to hell. Why? Because had it not been for that hellish soul, I would not have attained this godly soul. Because only through opposites can we realize the worth of good. Isn't that so? Had it not been evil, there would be no good. Does that make sense? Had there not been a Yazid, there would not have been Imam Hussain salamullah alayh. Had there not been Muawiyah, I've been dying to say that, had there not been Muawiyah, with emphasis, there would not be Imam Ali, to the glorious extent to which he was. Then you ask yourself, was it worth it for a soul to go to hell in order for me to go to heaven? So it is here that we need to revise everything. We need to ask ourselves that we actually have not understood. This packaged religion that we have in our heads, it is a delusional religion. We are people who are living in cuckoo land in there. We haven't arrived in this world. We haven't. We haven't bothered opening ourselves to a genuine inquiry that we ought to have. Well, what is happening? Why should I be here? Any thinking mind would find it absolutely unacceptable, the way this world is and the way religion has justified it. That the world can go to hell, you're going to paradise. And we are just happy with it. I mean, especially for the people who hear this story year in, year out, that the blessed Hussain ibn Ali salamullah alayh was shedding tears as they were putting him to death. And they said, why? He said, at their fate. Why? But they're killing you. He said, yes, exactly. Through me, they're going towards damnation. And my heart burns for this. That is why the Blessed Prophet said when the wahi came, that do not stand at their graves, O Muhammad. Even if you seek forgiveness 70 times, I shall not forgive them. The Prophet said, if only, I've heard this, the Prophet said, if only Allah were to have told me, O Muhammad, if you ask forgiveness 70 times, I will forgive them. I would have stood at each and every one of their graves and sought forgiveness for them. That is befitting humanity. That is godliness inside us. So here it is. We need to truly open up and ask questions. You see, as human beings, we are very insecure. We just need somebody to tell us that we are in the ark of safety. We are not going to drown, or we need to have a happy pill to keep us happy. The fact is that no, it is a journey. And in this journey, I have to try and get it right. I can't be under the effect of a happy pill. I need to wake up. At least start a journey of inquiry. Try to understand what is happening. And once we start understanding what is happening, we might find that humanity, like an individual child, is growing up. And the more the humanity evolves, the more godly humanity becomes. And humanity is a good place. And we do have the light of the beauty of God in us, whether we call one Sunni and the other Shia, or Salafi and Brelvi and Deobandi, or Ismaili and Bohra and whatever else you have, Christian and Jew and Sikh and Hindu and Buddhist and New Age religions, whatever they are. It's the part and parcel of the same truth. We are all following the same thing. If anybody could open their hearts and minds, they will say every prophet has done the same thing. They've taught the same message, that free yourself of your hellish tendencies. You have made a pact with God. God did not want to put you here in the first place. I mean, if we read the Quran accurately, Allah does not say He asked us to, He put us here, did He? He said, I offered my trust to the heavens and the earth and the mountain. And they all shook in awe, and they said, we do not want it. Human being accepted it. Indeed, the human is ignorant and oppressive. Even Allah is taunting us. You're ignorant and you're oppressive. This is not the place for you to come, but now you have come. You got to get it right. The whole of humanity is on the same track, whether you put the label of Islam upon it, or Christianity, or Abrahamic faith, or Sikhism. We are all on the same track. We are hardwired with that same beauty of God. We have to get it right. Every religion is like a professional. These people have to work together to make a complete, wholesome human community. We have to have teachers and physicians and carers and workers all cooperating and working together to get a success story. Humanity is the same. The Sikh, the Buddhist, the Christian, the atheist, the agnostic, whoever they are, they have to come together. There has to be a beautiful reciprocal relationship at the level of humanity and human nobility for us to evolve and get it right. It's about time we ask these pertinent questions and stop labeling each other as right and wrong, and allow ourselves to think accurately into what is happening. I leave us with one thought as we talk a little bit about the blessed Imam Hussain. And that one thought is that slavery existed in the time of the Blessed Prophet, right? And he modified it. And the Quran gave them a humanitarian treatment. And the Prophet gave a very compassionate outlook towards slavery. But the Prophet did not ban slavery. With the progression of human nobility, human beings abolished slavery for once and for all. Religion wasn't complete or final in the way we understand. Can you see that? Religion, in essence, only gives us that realignment with what is already here anyway. We are hardwired to be moral people. We are hardwired to be people who want to be aligned with spirituality. Religions merely realign us and remind us. If religion was final at that point, we would still be saying slavery is accurate. Can you see that? Nobody will say slavery is good. It worked back in the day. Due to their limitations, it wasn't an immoral thing. Today, it is immoral. Religion is not final at all. The beauty of God forever reveals itself and is growing with the growth of humanity. Many, many things will be reformed in line with human nobility as we progress. But the most phenomenal thing is that this truth that slavery has to be abolished is not something that Muslims brought out. It's something that non-Muslims brought out. That every man, an individual, should have right to freedom. They should not be owned by another. Think about these things and in our own times. And inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us. If you look at the message of Imam Hussain in the whole of his story, he said, I stand for Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi Anil Munkar. The Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi Anil Munkar that the blessed Imam was standing for was not telling people to pray and to fast. That wasn't Amr bil Ma'ruf. Ma'ruf was the progression of human goodness. In his khutbah, he explains that I have risen not to attain worldly power, nor the wealth of this world of yours. I have risen only to restore justice, to take from the oppressors and give back to the oppressed. He was talking about those beautiful moral values. At times he hints at those beautiful spiritual values from which the community had moved away. The people who were killing him were saying, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. They were praying prayers and they were fasting. The one who puts Imam Ali to death was a Qari of the Quran and one of the best ones. So Imam Hussein's message was all about bringing back this beautiful humanity within the folds of the community that the Prophet had left behind. And for that, he did whatever he did. His sister, Lady Zainab, she was extremely involved with her brother to the extent that she could not tolerate the thought of his death. We see this story in the whole of the event that she says to Imam Hussain, the soldiers of the enemies are gathering. Do you not have any helpers? And he said, in this wilderness, who do I have? And she said, what about the qafila of Bani Asad? On the night of Ashura, she is talking with the family of Imam Hussain and the friends of Imam Hussain that tomorrow you will fight and defend Imam Hussain. On the day of Ashura, we hear from the Dhakirin, she calls her two children and says to them, shall you not give your lives in order to try and save my brother? Then we find, as Shaykh Abbas Kummi says, we find Zainab at the body of Ali Akbar. And then he responds, because she did not want the shock of the death of Ali Akbar to kill Imam Hussain. We find that she runs up to the hill to see if her brother is still alive. To this extent, Zainab is involved with her brother. But look at how beautifully she evolves in the whole story. We hear that when Lady Zainab and Kulthum are being taken on the backs of naked camels as captives, from afar, Kulthum sees the body of Hussain. Inadvertently, she turns towards Medina and she says, oh grandfather, may the angels salute you. Is this not the Hussain who rode upon your shoulders? Is he not the one whose lips you adorned with endless kisses? Oh grandfather, see how he lays upon the dust with his head torn from his body. The blood oozing from his jugular veins has given him the ceremonial washing, and the dust of Karbala has given him the kafan. This was the state of the body of Hussain. When Zainab arrived at it, she dropped herself from the back of the camel. She composed herself and she supplicated to Allah and she said, "Oh Allah, accept this offering from us." Then we find a scene in the court of Ibn Ziyad, and we can see how refined she has become. He is poking at the face of Hussain, and she has not seen Imam Hussein's head after Karbala, save in the streets of Kufa. He pokes at the face of Imam Hussein, and he says to Zainab, "How did you find the decree of God with regard to your brother?" And she says, "Ma ra'aytu illa jamila." I have not seen but the beauty of God prevail. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين.
We have some time for some questions, if there are any questions from either side.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the lecture. I have 3 questions for you. The first one that you asked somewhere in the beginning of your lecture, what has Islam contributed? That we are where we are, irrespective of Islam. So then my question is, what has Islam and the teachings of the Prophet contributed to our society or our moral society today? The second sort of comment slash question that I have, you kept on mentioning the difference between Muslim and non-Muslim morals, Muslim lands and non-Muslim lands. But I never heard in your commentary the role of sort of self-determination and wealth in our ability to practice our morals. There is something to be said that wealth does allow you to reach higher moral sort of standing and self-determination. So is that more of a cause of a lack of morality rather than religion, or so from what I understood? And my last one is that you say that those that utter la ilaha illallah and therefore those that don't are not successful. But have we perhaps as a community not looked into the practical sort of societal applications of la ilaha illallah?
So when I said what has Islam contributed here, it was a rhetorical question in the sense that when the Prophet said Qulu la ilaha illallah, Islam gave them all the values that allowed them to evolve and progress. This is what this community is doing. What I was trying to say is that this is Islam hardwired within the human community. Yes? Not that the Prophet did not give anything. So I was saying, look, when the people gathered around, when the people of the United Nations after the Second World War wrote the Charter of Human Rights, it was not on the back of Islamic teachings, although religious teachings did influence, but it was our humanity that is hardwired with God that led to the formation of the Human Rights Charter. Yes? So God is somebody who is emerging and talking through us. Mikdad, can you get some water for me, please? Oh, here it is. Sorry, thank you. Thank you.
Salawat.
So that is what I meant. Not that I was not trying to put Islam down. I was trying to awaken. You know, the Quran is a reminder to awaken. I was trying to perform that role, but it didn't work. Anyway, at least.
No, but are you just then trying to say that Islam therefore is not exceptional?
No, Islam is not exceptional at all. How can it be exceptional? Isa did the same thing. Musa did the same thing. You know, the past prophets have done the same thing. Islam, the way we are understanding, is not what it is. Islam, according to the Quran, is one God-human trend that has existed all along. And Allama Tabatabai and others verified that there's only one religion. Islam in the time of Musa was called Judaism. They termed Islam Judaism. Islam at the time of Isa was termed Christianity. Islam at the time of Prophet Muhammad was termed Islam. Can you see that? They are all depiction of the same human truth that has forever been evolving. Ibrahim calls himself Muslim, yes? Yaqub, Yaqub's children, Isa, Hawariyun, Musa, all of them have been calling themselves Muslims, yes? So Islam, in the way that we understand Islam as that packaged religion, has not contributed anything uniquely that any other religion hasn't contributed. All of them have contributed, and it's the contribution of Islam as a whole. Don't feel offended that our Islam hasn't contributed anything. There is no emotional attachment to any labels. Yes? There is no emotional attachment. The first thing a creature of God needs to do is to get rid of this emotional attachment, because we feel offended, don't we? We feel offended. Islam hasn't done anything unique. So we feel offended. But why should I feel offended? Why? Somebody is saying this, he's a madman. Let him speak. He's talking like a parrot. Prove him wrong. Can you see that? So when I'm saying Islam, I don't mean the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I mean the Islam that we naively understand in our heads. Islam has always been just one religion, and it's a beautiful unfolding of the same truth with the progression of human community. That's all that's been happening. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was no different from Prophet Isa, from Prophet Musa, from Prophet Ibrahim. Yes? Tilka rusul la nufarriqu bayna ahadin min rusuli. We do not differentiate between any of his prophets. Yes? He was the best of prophets, no doubt. But in terms of all prophets being equal, they are all equal. Can you see that? Quran is saying that we do not distinguish between any of the prophets. No, I'm not saying it. The Quran says it. Tilka rusul faddalna ba'dhum ala ba'd. We gave preference to some rusul over another. Some Allah raised to the heavens, and others Allah spoke with. Allah says that in the Quran. Yeah, this is what the Quran is saying. So that's the first thing. That what has Islam given them? What I'm trying to say here is that our understanding is this, that Islam has made us into better people. This is the Muslim understanding. I'm saying here, these people have not had Islam. They are still better people. So how does that happen? In order to reassess this assumption that we have in our heads. Your second comment was what? I remember the third one. What was the second one?
The second one was the role of self-determination and wealth in morality versus religion.
Yeah, so the early Muslim community was a poor community. Yeah? In the time of the Prophet, they were very poor. The Medinan community. They were the most moral people ever. Yes? So I hope that answers. The third one, now I've forgotten the third one.
The practical societal applications of La ilaha illallah.
That's what I've been talking about. That's what I've been talking about. It's not a mere statement. It's the application, the societal applications of La ilaha illallah that brings the human being to the fruition of their potential. And that's what the Muslims have forgotten. Yeah? I mean, otherwise they wouldn't have killed Imam Hussain. They were saying La ilaha illallah and they killed Imam Hussain. See?
Akil.
Thank you.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. Thank you for a wonderful lecture. You mentioned about tribulations. We face a lot of tribulations in our time now. And the question is, how do we relieve ourselves from that, that feeling of hurt and anger? And my personal approach has always been to ask Allah to forgive them, for they don't know what they do.
So the first thing is that there is a pragmatic outlet for this anger, and that is that we find this an abnormal situation. Yes? We become emotive and we say, no, this is not how the world should be. We need to rectify the world. That is the first reason why we've been given these emotions, to do something about it. If rage wasn't there, we would not care less. We would become indifferent. And sloth is one of the major sins, according to the Christian enumeration of it. So this rage is good, that we say it's abnormal. I need to do something about it. This world should not be suffering this way. That's at the level of bringing about justice and fair play within the human society. In terms of personal suffering, that has to be used in terms of refining the human soul. Hussain Salamullah alayhi was phenomenal. He did not use God in order for God to relieve suffering. You see, for us, God is somebody on the other side of the telephone, isn't he? We call God when we have difficulties. That's how God is, right? We pray, God, I'll do this much for you, do this much for me. We bargain with God. God is only there to remove our difficulties. Yes? Imam Hussain did not invoke God in order for God to relieve him of his difficulties. He said to Allah, now that I am suffering, I need you to be by my side so that I may come through these sufferings in a most successful manner with a very refined soul. So he calls on to God and he prays to God in a very different way. That this suffering is a part and parcel of human existence. I need to remove this state as far as possible. But at the same time, whilst I'm attempting to remove this uncomfortable state, I need to grow through this state. And that is where Allah becomes impactful as becoming that very intimate part of suffering. And that is why Imam Hussain said when Akbar Salamullah alayhi fell, he said, what makes it bearable is that you share in this. You preserve every soul with what it has earned. So he says, oh Allah, the fact that you are with me, witnessing this scene, makes it bearable for me. So these are the two ways in which we see suffering: personal suffering and societal sufferings.
Okay. Final question on this side. I know there are a few more questions, but just one final question on the lady side, and then.
Just want to know, why is Islam the last religion then? If all the prophets are equal, why Islam is the last religion?
Yeah, okay. In order to understand Allah, we need to understand ourselves. The Prophet said, he who knows himself knows his God. The Prophet said, Allah has created you in his image. But Allah doesn't have a nose and eyes. And so in his image means the way of Allah. Now, I ask you a simple question. We will put our children into nursery, then into primary education, then into secondary education, then into university. Then they will do masters, postgraduate degrees. Then they will do doctorate. And after that, which teacher will you give them? Yes, so do they need any more teaching, or are they experts now? They are experts. So what does that mean? They graduate. Humanity graduated with the last message. Now we are supposed to be the experts. Now no more prophet is going to come and sort it. Our inner prophet has to sort it now. Can you see that? So the Mahdi, one person who will come, he can't come until all of us become Mahdis. He's going to come to the class of graduates. Yes? Fully accomplished. So we have to get there. The father has to let go of the finger of the child. The child has to learn to walk independently. Read the work of Ayatollah Mutahari and others when they talk about why Quran is the final message. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll have